Thousand Autumns, is a Meng Xi Shi novel. This is an audiobook made by fans for other fans. Disclaimer. The main couple of the story is made up of two men. If you don't like it, don't listen. Thank you. Remember, subscribe and click the bell to stay updated on all the new releases. Enjoy. Chapter 122. After the dust settled, this chapter came to its conclusion. For Xuan, the price they paid was most painful. Yui was dead, Tan Yuanchun's Wuzhong was nullified, to spend the remainder of his days guarding a grave site, not much different from death, of the other 6 elders, 4 were injured seriously, including Lu Yu, as he fought Tan Yuanchun and suffered internal injuries, would probably require seclusion to recuperate. The remaining 2 were also wounded. As for the disciples, Lian and Yunchang had gone to notify their Shifu when Sang Jingxing and his people ascended the mountain, had only come back with Kongzhen in the middle of things. They avoided the most ferocious of the killings of the disciples' standing guards. When Lian fought Xiao Se, he was injured, but on account of the latter being not that interested in their fight, Lian's injuries were not extensive. The remaining disciples were all seriously wounded. One had been hit directly by Sang Jingxing, falling over the precipice, bones completely crushed. Luckily was caught by a branch when they fell. They hung there with their last breath, until someone was able to rescue them. Looking around, it was all the injured and the elderly. Wailing could be heard throughout. But it was only after experiencing this event, those that still had illusions about collaborating with Taju, finally saw Taju's true intentions, and they also finally realized Xuan's desire to re-emerge into the secular world and to rise among the Daoist sects, could not rely on external supports. The strongest supports could be embroidery on the brocade. Ultimately, it all came back to one's own abilities. Shen Qiao reclaiming Xuan's Han Zhang Qiao, this was pretty much undisputed, no need for discussion. With the exception of Lu Yu, the other 5 elders took it upon themselves to find Shen Qiao, expressing their hopes that he'll succeed as Zhang Qiao, and their deep remorse over trusting Yui previously. Yui vanishing, Lu Yu and Tan Yuanchun fighting over the Zhang Qiao position. Now with Shen Qiao's return, this matter was no longer worth dispute. Even if Lu Yu came out of seclusion, the Zhang Qiao position would not go to him. Shen Qiao listened. For a long time he said nothing. Everyone seeing this, was a bit fidgety, afraid that Shen Qiao might still hate them. With the larger enemy beat back, now was naturally the time to clear the accounts. Who knew that when Shen Qiao opened his mouth he would say, "The newly established Sui wants to befriend the Daoist sects. The Sui Emperor has allocated funds for me to build a Daokang in Chang'an, which will be used to erect Xuanduguan." When I left the capital, Xuanduguan was nearing completion. In the future it will be Xuandu Purple Pavilion's other site. My time is limited, I have no way of attending to it all, so in the matter of Chang'an Xuanduguan, I will have the elders rotate through every year to oversee it. What does everyone think? They all looked at each other. They didn't expect Shen Qiao to talk about this matter. They would know, since Xuan reopened its doors. Yui working with the Taju, had ordered the recruitment of new disciples to happen in spring and fall every year, but in reality the yield was poor. Of the ones seeking a master, there were very few of good caliber, frustrating the elders. They didn't know how to expand Xuan's influence within the Daoist sects and in people's hearts. If they could obtain the support of the Sui dynasty, in Chang'an establish their Guan and teachings, then what had been difficult in the past was easily resolved. Not only that, but Chang'an was a congregate of talent. If the elders could rotate overseeing things there, they would never need to worry about not finding good disciples again. The sect being carried forward, themselves likely to have successors, how could they not be happy? Lian Shan was ashamed. Zhang Jiao is very forgiving, writing off priors. We however cannot go on as if nothing happened, brushing things aside. On the matter of rotating through as overseer of Chang'an, you don't need to include me in this. I am willing to spend the remainder of my days teaching disciples, helping with sect matters, never setting foot off the mountain again. Of the 4 Suan Dus Han Zhanglao that supported UAI, Lian Shan was closest to UAI. Of course he had his own interests, hoping that with UAI as leader, he would also have more power. But Lian Shan was not capable of great evil, rather, Suan Dus Han from one generation to the next, disciples were selected with great care, with emphasis on character. Of course there would be exceptions, but these were few. Facing the circumstances now, Lian Shan also realized his mistake. Seeing Shen Qiao's generosity, he was moved, felt more ashamed, so these words he spoke from his heart. Kong Zheng also said, if we're talking mistakes, I as a Zhanglao, stood outside of it all, ignored the fluctuations within my sect, trying to avoid all entanglements. I am more guilty of neglecting my duties. I implore Zhang Jiao to punish me accordingly, even if it's to spend the remainder of my days guarding the tombs of our ancestors. I am willing. The other elders seeing this, all started to speak up about their own faults. Shen Qiao knew that some things must be said, towards UAI. I also made the mistake of negligence, otherwise I wouldn't have been taken advantage of. I've said this before. He wasn't wrong in his commitment to Suan Dus Han. The wrong was when he tried to ask a tiger for its skin, when he caused harm to his Shikshan. Now he is dead. In many matters there's no use in talking more, since you all want to remedy things, then more the reason to listen to my words, and less in your hearts, wallowing in repentance for the past is more important than following Zhang Jiao's orders. They rushed to say they wouldn't dare. Shen Qiao, if so, then nothing more needs to be said. It was then that they could be certain that Shen Qiao had no intention of pursuing past accounts. They let out a breath they had been holding and felt very grateful. Unlike the previous time when he inherited the Zhangjiao position from Qi Fengge, this time, Shen Qiao with his own potential, formally became Zhangjiao. No one was dissatisfied, or felt that he couldn't live up to his name. Lian Shan said, I heard when Zhang Jiao was outside he took on disciples. Since you have returned, we should have someone bring those 2 Shizi back. He had always been capable, what others hadn't thought of, he had already considered. Shen Qiao was so busy he'd nearly forgotten. Thank you Shisha for the reminder. Shiwu and Qi Lang are currently guests at Bixia Sect. I see that Kong Shisha's disciples Lian and Yunchang are steadfast in matters. Why not have them go on a journey, and bring them back? Kong Zhen nodded. It'll be a good opportunity for them to get some practice. They discussed a few more matters at length, mostly about Suan Dus Han's policy decisions and future directions. In the end Shen Qiao decided on policies regarding the rebuilding of the sect and recruitment of disciples, and delegated tasks accordingly. To the 2 elders now responsible for assessing new disciples he said, on my journey I met 3 people at the foot of the mountain. They had traversed 1,000 li to seek out a master. Unfortunately they didn't get a chance to come up the mountain. If I could trouble the 2 of you to send someone down to see if they're still there, then bring them up, assess them according to the regulations. Moreover, in the future recruiting disciples no longer needs to be restricted to the occasion of the spring and fall equinox. As long as someone is seeking a master, they can be assessed at any time. However, the number of people who are drawn here from now on will only increase, so the assessment must be strict, especially when it comes to personal character, maiming our own within the sect. I do not want to see a second time. The 2 elders expressed their agreement. Shen Qiao then told them the names of Du and Ying, their group of 3, and the name of the inn where they were staying. After sending away those 2, Bian Yan Mi came in, Shen Zhang, important people tend to be busy, 10,000 tasks in a day, don't ruin your health. Shen Qiao laughed, thank you for your concern, you're an official in court, have to deal with a lot of people regularly, yet you do it so easily, calm and collected, I admire that a lot, if it was you as Zhang Qiao, you'd be more suited to it than I by 100-fold. Bian Yan Mi smiled, Shen Zhang flatters me, in these years I've spent dealing with people, I neglected my Wuzhong, have not improved at all, Shizun is extremely upset, where there's gain there's loss, in the end how can anything be perfect? Shen Qiao, are your injuries improved? Bian Yan Mi, it's all thanks to Suan Dushan's medicines, it's much improved, since this matter has been resolved, I will not trouble you further, and have come to bid you farewell. Shen Qiao knew that he still had many affairs to attend to in Chang'an, this time I thank you for your help, Shen Qiao is very grateful, in the future if there's something you need, please let me know, I will try to help. Bian Yan Mi smiled, Shen Zhang no need to be so polite, if you want to thank someone then thank my Shizun, if I didn't have his respectful elderly one's instructions, how would I be able to act on my own? Shen Qiao, do you know the fight between Yan Zongju and Hulagu, where it will take place? Bian Yan Mi shook his head, I do not, you'll probably have to send someone to check the news. Shen Qiao unconsciously furrowed his brows, then as you see it, does your Shizun stand a chance of winning? Bian Yan Mi, that day at Shijiandawi I was not there, I did not see Hulagu's prowess, but I hear his Wuzhong is exceedingly high, it would be hard to find a rival his level in the world. Shen Qiao, yes, I fought him, even expending all my effort, within 50 moves, I was certain to lose. Bian Yan Mi's expression changed, that strong? What to do, the flaw in Shizun's demonic core still hasn't resolved completely. Shen Qiao, rushed, how could that be, last time I heard him say clearly that it's been fixed, otherwise when he fought Switting, how was he able to win? Bian Yan Mi sighed, did Shizun say that to you? Truthfully, the day Shizun fought Switting, his Nili was compromised fundamentally, what was the close to flawless demonic core, started to crack again, it would require a year and a half of rest, who knew that the situation at Suan Dushan would change, if no one stayed Hulagu, he would certainly have helped his disciple Duan Vinyang by coming up the mountain to seek you out, so Shizun had to execute this less than ideal plan, this challenge does not bode well. He didn't finish his sentence, but his heavy expression already spoke this sentiment. Shen Qiao's heart, along with his words, continued to sink little by little. You and Yan Zongju must have some way of communicating? Can you find out where he is? Bian Yan Mi, I can, but what's the use, this fight will happen regardless, Shen Zhang has no need to feel guilty, what my Shizun does, he only does if he wants to, there's no one who can force him. Shen Qiao was silent for a while, quietly said, I know, but if I can't see him, how can I be at peace? Bian Yan Mi sighed, in that case. His sentence unfinished, a disciple entered from outside to report, Zhang Qiao, there's someone at the foot of the mountain seeking an audience, he says he's Huanyu Sect disciple Yu Shenjun. Before Bian Yan Mi could react, Shen Qiao had already said, show him up quickly. He looked happy, even his voice rose in pitch. Bian Yan Mi laughed, that's great, no need to waste time trying to get in touch, Shidi is sure to know where Shizun is. After a while, Yu Shenjun followed the disciple over, Shen Qiao seeing him enter, rose to greet him. In terms of Wuzhong, position, or martial generation, he had no need to do so, seeing him stand, Bien Yan Mi, who had not planned to stand originally, couldn't not follow suit. He thought, my conversation with him must have sent Chen Daozang into disarray. On his way up, Yu Shenjun saw that although people's expressions were bleak, everything was in order. He surmised that Suan Dushan must have undergone a calamity, but the danger was already past. Congratulations Shen Daozang on regaining the Zhangjiao position. I bet I'm the first one to come up the mountain to congratulate you. Daozang ought to give me a large hongbeo. Seeing Shen Qiao and his Shikshan welcoming him at the door, he was very moved, but didn't put on any airs, rushed to pay his respects, and made this small joke. Shen Qiao however was unable to smile. Thank you, where are you coming from? Yu Shenjun saw Bien Yan Mi, who was standing behind Shen Qiao, shoot him a look, momentarily was a little muddled, didn't dare reply frivolously, from Chang'an. He remembered the purpose of his journey. From his robes he took out a small bamboo canister. Shizun brought Switting to Tiantai Sect. In exchange he obtained from Tiantai Sect Zongju a copy of the fragment of Zuyang Ce. He wanted me to bring this to Shen Daozang. Shen Qiao received it, twisted the bamboo canister open. From inside he pulled out a silk scroll. It was covered completely with words. The silk scroll was light in his hands, but for some reason, Shen Qiao felt he was holding 100 pounds of gold. Its heft he could barely lift. His grasp on the silk tightened, his heart a disarray of feelings, it was hard to describe. Then do you know where your Shizun is currently, and the fight between him and Hulagu, where it will take place? Yu Shenjun, this fight will happen at Banbu Peak. Shen Qiao froze. Back then his fight with Kunyi had also been at Banbu Peak, his subsequent injury and fall, rescue by Yan Wushi, everything had started there. Now, it is to be Banbu Peak again. Yu Shenjun added, Huanyu Sect has a residence not too far from Banbu Peak. I think Shizun will arrive in advance, and settle there for the time being. That residence, he didn't need to elaborate. Shen Qiao remembered, after he was brought back by Yan Wushi and his disciple from Banbu Peak, it was where he had rested. Inexorably, he had come full circle. Mentioning this, Yu Shenjun was a little awkward. Back then he had seen the amnesic Shen Qiao, lied to him about being a disciple of Huanyu Sect, and urged him to call him Shikshan. Yu Shenjian's face thickness was not cultivated as much as his shifu. If it was Yan Wushi here, he wouldn't be the least awkward. In fact, he'd probably shamelessly say something that would make Shen Qiao awkward instead. Shen Qiao thought of this, kind of wanted to laugh, but couldn't. He gripped the silk scroll tighter in his hand. A plan had formed in his head. Duenying, the group of 3 had traveled 1,000 li to seek a master, but met a noseful of dust, hadn't even been able to ascend the mountain. They were greatly discouraged. After hesitating a day, Zhongbojing departed first. He planned to go to Qingqinchan to try his luck. After all, Chiniangwan was also a reputable, large Daoist sect. Duenying and Zhang Qiao were left. They didn't know whether to go or stay, were in the middle of debating when a visitor came. They were wearing the robes of a Suan Dushan disciple, and said that they were here to take them up the mountain to be assessed as a new recruit. The 2 of them were half suspicious, half believing, but didn't want to give up on this last thread of hope, hurried after their visitor up the mountain. After much trial and tribulation, finally passed the tests. They even had an audience with the Suan Dushan Zhanglao. They were overjoyed. They felt they were the embodiment of luck follows great sorrow. Who knew that after Zhang Qiao was led away by a disciple to rest, Duenying was brought by another Zhanglao in front of Shen Qiao. Shen Qiao had already packed his belongings, was preparing to go on a journey, and had to explain some last-minute things to the disciples. In this myriad of affairs he found time to see Duenying. He asked him, "Are you willing to enter my tutelage, and become my disciple?" Duan Ying had already been struck dizzy by this huge turn of fate. The elder had to remind him before he finally realized, the mild-tempered, easy to talk to, kind Daoist the three of them had met at the foot of the mountain was actually Xuandu's Han's Ch122, Qiao, ranked among the top 10 martial masters in the world, Shen Qiao. Shen Qiao saw the other in a fugue, so he repeated his words again, then said kindly, if you don't want to, you can also enter the tutelage of another Zhang Lao, no matter. I'm willing. Willing. I'm extremely willing. Duan Ying snapped back into attention, his face a bright red, as if he wanted to say this phrase 100 times over. Yu Shenjun watched the scene from the side, couldn't help smirking. He thought, Shen Qiao's judgment when it came to taking disciples wasn't great. Look at the other's dumb face, compared to himself, he was really lacking. As soon as he had this thought, he saw his Shikshan Bian Yan Mi roll his eyes at him. Yu Shenjun, baffled, what did I do this time? End of the chapter. Stay tuned for more BL.